All right, here we're being asked to solve this equation by completing the square. What we do when we do this is we're going to add a constant to both sides of this equation, and we take that from this linear coefficient, we divide it by 2, so in this case I'll do this on the side, so the positive 11, we divide it by 2, and then we square that. This is a lot easier if this coefficient, this linear coefficient here is even, because it's easy to divide by 2. It's not easy in this case. But what we're going to do is just leave it as 11 halves and square it to get 121 over 4. And again, how I did that was I just squared the 11 and I squared the 2. So that's what I'm going to add to both sides of this equation. All right, now what do I do? Well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 12 and the plus 121 together over here. So I'll do that real quick. Actually, I'll do that on the side here also. So I get 12 over 1 plus 121 over 4. I'll rewrite this 12 over 1 as 48 fourths plus 121 fourths. Add those together and I get 169 over 4. Okay, so that's this side. 169 over 4. And now the question becomes is how does this factor? This perfect square trinomial you create will always factor in this same way. So I'm going to get x plus or minus, it's actually plus in this case because this is a plus right here, plus something squared. The number that goes here is the number that we had before we squared it. So in other words, it's half of this number every single time. So positive 11 divided by 2 is positive 11 halves. We've completed the square, so this is the big first step, and now what we do is just solve this by taking the square root. So we will apply the square root to both sides of this equation to get x plus 11 halves equals plus or minus the square root here of, I didn't write that in, but the square root of both sides, square cancels that. The square root of a 169 fourths is 13 halves, and it's 13 halves because you apply the square root to the numerator and denominator separately. And finally, we could solve this to get x. We'd subtract 11 halves from both sides to get negative 11 halves, plus or minus 13 halves. And let me clean up my work over here, and I'll find these two answers. All right, all I've done now is I've split this up into negative 11 over 2 plus 13 over 2, and negative 11 over 2 minus 13 over 2. We'll deal with the minus 13 over 2 first. So I'm going to subtract these numerators. Negative 11 minus 13, this would be negative 24 over 2. And that reduces down just down to negative 12. It's my first solution. And in this case, I have negative 11 plus 13 over 2, which would give me 2 over 2, which is my second solution of 1.